week, running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to another episode of Without a Country. I'm Corinne Fisher. I don't know which side I'm going to put this microphone on. Maybe I'll drape this over here. You know, it's wild. It's wild up in this studio. Thank you so much for joining me. Big news. Maybe you heard the news, maybe you haven't. If you follow me on Instagram and listen to my other podcast, guys, we bleeped. I'm saying that so I don't mess up the first couple minutes of YouTube. You probably already know the news, but if not, I certainly don't want to ruin it for you by not making it special and exciting on this show. So the political office that I've been teasing about running for, more so on this show than anywhere else. You guys probably had a better idea what my big special news was more than anyone else. But I am running for mayor of New York City. In the 2025 election, the primary, if you are a New York City resident, happens on June 24th. And as New Yorkers know, basically whoever wins the Democratic primary ends up winning the whole shebang in November. I don't want to say always wins because it's obviously not a guarantee. Things could change, especially with the right movement that we see not only countrywide but nationwide. So I never want to say it's an impossibility. But that being said, there's pretty much no chance of winning the election if you don't win the Democratic primary in June. So that is what I am amping up for right now. We had an amazing start to our fundraising weekend. I announced the campaign on Friday, which was January 31st, and we have amassed hundreds of donations since then. And we have tens of thousands of dollars, which is amazing. But obviously, we're catching up to candidates who have been at this for a couple of disclosure cycles now. That's what they call them. And so we have to catch up. It's not always, the person with the most money or who does the most fundraising who wins, but you certainly cannot win an election if you don't fundraise a considerable amount. So I apologize in advance for how annoying I'm going to be about money. That being said, I also don't apologize because you know me. I pretty much never ask for money. Starting a Patreon on this for this show, I truly only did because I got so many requests for us to start a Patreon on here. But this is different because I don't feel like I'm asking for money for me. I truly feel like I'm asking for money to support my platform, which I obviously 100% stand behind. You can read about the key issues that I want to tackle as mayor on CorinneFisher.com. It's the same website that I use for comedy, but it's the same URL, but not the same website. We just replaced the website, so it's really easy. It's already in there for you. CorinneFisher.com, CORINNE, Fisher.com. And on there is a form if you want to offer to volunteer. We can have volunteers who are, primarily in New York City would be the most helpful place. But you can also phone bank from anywhere in the United States. I'd say we do have to keep it United States. You can donate. Again, thank you for anyone who has tried to contribute. The contributions must be from Americans only. That's a legal thing. So Americans only. You can be an American living abroad, but no foreign nationals can donate. But thank you for the enthusiasm. Tell a friend in New York. I do have a theory that we all have a friend in New York City. And also, if you are in New York City, just because I feel like this call to action has been kind of buried under all of the big news that we have this week, Christina and I are doing a live recording of the GWF podcast at New York Comedy Club East Village on Valentine's Day, which is February 14th at 6 p.m. Again, New York Comedy Club East Village. It's 85 East 4th Street. We perform there often. Valentine's Day has kind of become an unofficial GWF holiday, so we always perform together. We are doing a live recording of the show. We're going to have a very special surprise guest who we will interview. And then additionally, I'm going to give my first official speech of the campaign. This is like the true kickoff on the campaign trail. Again, this is a fundraising event and it's a holiday, but I still have to pay the club for the use of their space. So tickets do start at $49. A couple of you have found a way to bypass to get through to buy tickets somehow for less money. Please don't do that because any of you who did that, my treasurer is going to be contacting you and we can either figure out how to refund you if you don't want to pay for the fundraising ticket, which is totally fine. I get it. Fundraisers are just more expensive than regular things. Honestly, we're just charging the regular. It's pretty much the regular Valentine's Day ticket price that we're charging. We're not even going over that.
$49?
Yeah.
That's a cheap Valentine's Day ticket in New York City.
It is a cheap Valentine's Day ticket. I know, but I want to be, it's interesting when you're running on a platform that wants to make costs lower, but to do so, you have to charge a certain amount of money that might not allow everyone to have access to the event, right? But that's the game of fundraising. And there will certainly, if that's out of your price range, I completely understand. But there will be other ways to participate. That being said, I can't charge lower for the tickets because then just like kind of the fundraiser is not worth our time after we pay the venue for the space. And time is of the essence and extremely valuable. Every moment of my day has been spent on this campaign since early December. And so I appreciate your understanding. But if you are in New York City, it's going to be I'm going to say it's going to be an historical event, but on top of that, your $49 donation, or if you want to donate more, you can donate more. Once we hit our threshold, if you are a New York City resident, that donation will be matched 8-1 by the city of New York, which is really exciting. So if you're listening to the show and you are a New York City resident, I doubly urge you to please, if you can't make it to the event on February 14th, donate something at CorinneFisher.com, even $10. It's not only the amount of money, but it's also the amount of New Yorkers. I have to get 1,000 separate donations from 1,000 separate New Yorkers to meet that fundraising threshold. So New York City residents, you have extra power. But donations from all across the country have been coming in, and they're extremely valuable, and I appreciate them so much. My inbox is just flooded. And again, it's going to help us to catch up with a lot of people who do not share the vision that I think a lot of you guys share for the city or for the country. Whether or not you live in New York City, I think you can recognize that New York City is one of the major cities in the country, and it sets the precedent for a lot of things that happen here. I think it sets a tone. I think we have an extra sense of responsibility here to do the right thing, and the current mayor, Eric Adams, is certainly not doing that. He's just straight up chilling with Donald Trump. He's currently being indicted. I think he's going to be, getting out of it from his friendship with Donald Trump, but this is not the kind of leadership that we need. And it might sound crazy to run for mayor as your first political office to run for, but is it? I'm not walking into this a complete unknown. I already have a following. I have a little bit of money to play with my own contribution. I've already maxed out my own contribution to my campaign. I have access to a lot of interesting people. I have access to a lot of political activists. Stephen Jenkins from Third Eye Blind is a part of the campaign. He's been an incredible advisor. Nadine Strawson, we sat down with, the former president of the ACLU. She gave, she's not an official member of the campaign, but she gave us some incredible insight into the New York City and the world of politics. And I just think we have some really cool people on our team. And this is not some makeshift put together campaign team either. We have political strategists, we have campaign advisors, and these are people who have faith in me and see something exciting in me, which I wasn't expecting. Not that I wasn't expecting people to be excited by me, but I wasn't expecting people who have worked on the campaigns of Hillary Clinton and Andy Kim and a lot of other successful politicians to be like, yeah, I want to work for you. And I know you might be sitting at home thinking, well, of course they want to work for you. Like, it's a payday. No, these people are taking serious pay cuts, Not that they have a standard amount of money that they charge, but, I think they name their own rate for whatever it is they want to do. Perhaps it's on a sliding scale or something. And these people really have faith in me, which makes me extremely excited. I think what we all can agree on in the Democratic Party is that it's absolutely time for change, and we're going to make that change happen, hopefully. And if not, we're certainly going to make a lot of noise in the pursuit of this change. So thanks for coming on this journey with me. Yeah, I'm very excited. I am very excited and very tired, but don't worry, I got a B12 shot today. My endocrinologist is even excited about the campaign, you guys. Come on. It's crazy. But again, all information for that show on February 14th and for ways that you can get involved, all available at CorinneFisher.com. And again, please don't buy tickets for less than $49. That was a problem. Not a problem, but that was just a hiccup, I guess, that the Contribute site, which is the official contribution site of New York City, did not see. But we can't let you in for under that, because then the campaign will actually be losing money and it will be counterproductive. And every donation is for one ticket. You're buying one ticket. Again, complex. We're learning as we go. All right, let's get into the show. If you guys, and if you have no interest in me running for mayor, totally get it. If that's not why that's not why you signed up to follow this show. You signed up to get the news, and we will still be giving you all the news. Let's get right into it with our enemy of the state this week. Our enemy of the state this week is Christianity, okay? And I hate to say it. Because there's a lot of Christians I love, but Christianity, as it pertains to its influence on the government, we've been looking out for this with God Watch for many months now. And I would say what's happening right now, the more I've been reading into it with with Project 2025, which is being applied to the government, which we knew was going to happen. And if you didn't know that was going to happen, then I don't know what to tell you, because I've been telling you for months that it's going to happen. You look at the things that the Trump administration is trying to make go into effect, and you're like, who exactly does this benefit? This seems like it's anti almost everybody, but it's not anti like traditional, mostly white, mostly straight Christian ethics and way of life, and that's what they're trying to get back to.
Of the state.
And this is not a mistake. This is by design. Donald Trump is doing kind of exactly what one should and would do if they want to become a dictator or an all-knowing, powerful, mighty force. And that's that you get rid of large government, and then you fill that existing small government with people who are loyal to you. Okay? You'll see comparisons to Adolf Hitler. And the problem with that is that it's such an overused comparison that it kind of means nothing anymore. But this is an instance where it actually makes sense, but it's kind of falling on deaf ears because it's, Hitler is just thrown around, especially by extreme leftists, so much that it doesn't mean anything. And so to talk about this a little bit more, I'm going to go read a piece from one of my favorite journalists, Molly Jong Fast. I follow her on Instagram. I highly recommend following her. She wrote a piece for Vanity Fair that was published on February 3rd called Project 2025 is Here. And I just really love her insight, especially on political issues. And so I just wanted to share this with you. It says, candidate Trump tried distancing himself from a right-wing blueprint that President Trump's administration is already implementing. It turns out that the boogeyman of the last presidential election cycle, Project 2025, was no figment of our imagination, but an all-too real plan for governing. Again, if you didn't know that before you voted, there's no helping you. We all remember Donald Trump's attempts to distance himself from the right-wing blueprint on the campaign trail and on the debate stage. I have nothing to do with Project 2025. I haven't read it, he said during his one and only face-off with Kamala Harris. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. And you know what? Maybe he didn't read it, right? It's long. I'm guessing he probably didn't read it, but he knew the essence of what it said. And perhaps he thought by not actually reading it that he wasn't responsible, that he wasn't lying to people, you know? It's just how do you get through? How do you lie without actually lying? How do you not tell the truth, you know, but have it still come off and making you look good? And yet CNN found that out of the 53 Trump executive actions and orders it analyzed, 36 evoke proposals outlined in Project 2025 on issues such as immigration, energy, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI efforts. Let's recap how we got here. In the summer of 2024, Democrats seized upon Project 2025, a plan spearheaded by the Heritage Foundation, which we've talked about a lot on this show. The initiative included a website on which aspiring administration officials could apply for inclusion in a database used for presidential hiring. Oh, and speaking of databases, I know a couple people were talking about it and someone even emailed me, but I did submit myself to be included in that White House press conference that they're kind of offering to like any influencers, podcasters, etc. So I did submit my application. So fingers crossed. The plan wasn't a secret. The 922-page mandate for leadership had been published in April 2023 on Heritage's site and boasted supporters across the right-wing spectrum. We are a coalition of more than 110 conservative groups advocating policy and personnel recommendations for the next conservative president, a Project 2025 spokesperson told Newsweek. And please note, since this show is all about the right and the left, there are plenty of organizations that kind of prop up Democratic hopefuls for different offices and try to support them, right? Even AOC, she had a group like that was helping her when she first ran, obviously a Democratic one. And I'm not saying these groups are bad, but they certainly have a list of issues that you kind of need to side with them on to get their support. And if you're on board with those issues as a candidate genuinely, then I say go for it. But if you're not, well, that's step one into some pretty murky territory. And then very quickly you see how you owe people favors who are helping you to get to where you need or want to be in politics. And I think very quickly, perhaps the reason why you initially wanted to step foot in politics, hopefully to help people, can be lost if you're not extremely careful about that. So that's a warning that you can heed from this article, but also from my personal experience. And again, it's been 2 months and I could already write a book. Let's see. We are a coalition of more than 110 conservative groups advocating policy and personnel recommendations for the next conservative president, a Project 2025 spokesperson told Newsweek. Project 2025 looked very much like the agenda for a second Trump term. As I wrote at the time, even if then candidate Trump was keeping it at arm's length. That's understandable given how unpopular this right-wing roadmap was during the presidential race, even among Republicans. About 33% of Republicans say they view the plan negatively, NBC News found in a September poll, with just 7% saying they have positive views of the plan. The Project 2025 wish list included rolling back LGBTQ plus protections, curbing abortion rights, and banning pornography, as well as greatly increasing presidential power. The secret sauce in this very unsecret plan is money, like taking control of the federal budget and doling the money out, completely circumventing Congress's power of the purse. In July of 2023, the New York Times reported how Trump was looking to revive the practice of impounding funds, refusing to spend money Congress had appropriated for programs a president doesn't like, a tactic that lawmakers banned under President Richard Nixon. The Impoundment Control Act of 1974 was designed to prevent presidents from using congressionally approved funds as a kind of carrot and stick, as Trump tried to do in holding up Ukraine funding during his first term, leading to his first impeachment. Last week's Trump Office of Management and Budget issued a memorandum calling on government agencies to temporarily pause, to the extent permitted by law, grant, loan, or federal financial assistance programs that are implicated by the president's executive orders. The move was unprecedented and, according to legal experts, unconstitutional, or as OMB chief pick Russ Vought might put it, post-constitutional. And I do want to look at that word unprecedented. I've been talking a lot about it in my own political conversations. I really hate this word, and I think it's being overused right now because I think when we have these political conversations and we consistently say that something is unprecedented, it's like, while that might be true, we say it as if we are so wildly surprised, right? Part of the government's job, and I think we've talked about it on this show before, but I definitely have talked about it a lot in my life, is that we have to expect the unexpected. A good government expects the unexpected, whether that be a natural disaster, whether that be a person in power taking more power than we elected them to take, whether that be someone in power getting injured or hurt, a terrorist attack, any of these things, right? You say, oh, these are unprecedented. Okay, but that makes it seem like we are so surprised this thing happened. One thing about existing in the world is that the unprecedented will always occur, okay? You know, when we talk about progress, like, progress doesn't always have to be progressive, right? Sometimes the progress we make as a country can actually be looked at as a regression, but we are still in the timeline moving forward. So I would say just like this tone of being shocked and aghast that the Democrats love to take on is doing us no service, okay? Let's come together and create a government where whether or not something is unprecedented doesn't matter, because we have a plan for it, okay? Because we are a rich country and we should have a plan for it. We should have a plan to take care of unexpected things that might happen, because they will always happen. There's just been something that's been driving me crazy lately. Trump's federal spending freeze, which was previewed in Project 2025, according to the Associated Press, went over like a lead balloon. A judge temporarily blocked part of the Trump plan, and the administration rescinded the OMB memo. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who's 27, explained on X that the move was not a rescission of the federal funding freeze, adding that Trump's executive orders on federal funding remain in full force and effect and will be rigorously implemented. The whole mess smacked of Trump 1.0, hugely disruptive and confusing, while accomplishing little beyond rattling people in government and reinvigorating Democrats. Right? And I know that's what we want to happen. But I would push back on that and say, like, is it reinvigorating Democrats, or is it throwing us into fits of hysteria where we then have these little nitpicky conversations with each other within our own party and get absolutely nowhere, okay? There was a clip of Nancy Mace today that was floating around. United States representative who just has really come down hard, specifically against trans people. So she was using a trans slur in a House hearing, and it went circulating. It was circulating today. And in the clip, at the end of the clip, you kind of basically see another Republican play dumb and say, like, I don't really know. I'm not really familiar with this slur, and he is. There's no way he's not familiar with the slur, and kind of playing dumb to let Nancy Mace get away with it because the argument was that she was not following the rules of decorum, and that's how they were trying to get her to stop saying it, and also just like to have some kind of rule over the House, but. That was like a good and small example of Republicans sticking together, right? Because whether or not that guy has a problem with the trans slur, I'm guessing he doesn't. I'm guessing he just doesn't care. Probably wasn't on his agenda for the day to be like, I'm going to advocate for using this trans slur. But he wasn't pushing back against her. And that's how the Republicans are just making strides that the Democrats are not able to. The nitpicking on the left, and I've been talking about this for years because I hate the word victim, but I've been a victim in quotes, I'm fine, of it. And it just stops us from making the progress we need to. A second judge on Friday issued an order temporarily requiring the federal government to not pause, freeze, impede, block, cancel, or terminate funding promised to a number of states. Meanwhile, Trump world continues to have the federal workforce in its sights. The Trump administration sent employees an email with the subject line, "Fork in the Road," mimicking a subject line once used by unelected billionaire Elon Musk in a note to Twitter employees, urging them to either get on board with the new administration or take a buyout. This all fits in with the Project 2025 goal of shrinking the nonpartisan federal workforce and replacing those employees with political supporters, the types of people who will bend the federal government to Trump's will. Trump may have gotten ahead of himself with such a radical funding freeze out of the gate, especially as his leadership isn't yet in place. Vaught, a Project 2025 architect and the author of the second chapter of the Mandate for Leadership, has yet to be confirmed by the Senate. Same with Trump's FBI director pick, Kash Patel, who has mused about making the agency's headquarters a museum of the deep state. Sure, an OMB memo was pulled back, but that looks like a tactical retreat in a war on federal employees that's only just begun. And I also, obviously we saw all the plane crashes that happened that were attributed to the pullbacks on DEI. I'm trying to see what is a good piece to. So 3 days ago, The Guardian published an article that said, stomach-turning, Democrats condemn Trump's DEI claims after Washington plane crash, right? Political leaders clash over Trump linking diversity, equity, and inclusion practices with collision that killed 67 people. U.S. political leaders clashed on Sunday over Donald Trump's controversial comments on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs following last week's aircraft collision over the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. The president weighing in while bodies were still being recovered, blaming this on DEI, and when pressed, he has no evidence to suggest it, was absolutely stomach-turning, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine told CNN's State of the Union. Kaine said he had a suspicion that the president did not want to be asked questions about why he had let Elon Musk force the FAA administrator to resign and had scrapped an aviation safety advisory committee within the Department of Homeland Security before the crash occurred. And if you want to talk about unprecedented, if that's the word that we love to use, a commercial airline crash hasn't happened in, wasn't it like 2016, someone said? It was a really long time ago that's happened. I mean, think about the last time that you heard about a commercial plane crashing. 2016. I want to say that I heard 2016, but it might have been even before that. Yeah, maybe it was even 2001. Again, there's a lot of numbers floating around my head.
Well, we know about a couple from 2001.
Well, okay, yeah. Yes, of course. But I'm saying like the last one. I mean, it's the deadliest since 2001, absolutely. But I just wanted to say specifically, yeah, okay. Anyway, well, because in November, I think November 2001 is what they're referencing. So obviously it's not September 11th, but in November of 2001, an American Airlines jet crashed after departing from John F. Kennedy Airport, killing all 260 people on board and 5 people on the ground. So again, if we want to talk about unprecedented, it was just like, what is happening? All right. So he decided to have everybody chase down a rabbit hole of his DEI allegations with no evidence, Kane added, referring to Trump's comments that diversity hiring had lowered standards at the FAA and had played a role in the crash that killed 67. And if you kind of even lightly follow politics or even like social commentary of a higher level on the internet, you will know immediately that the group of people who have been helped most by DEI are white women, right? And so he's acting like it was people with, I mean, he went down a real rabbit hole of like, people with physical disabilities, like not being able to properly do things to help planes land. And like, that's just not on paper what DEI is or who it's really been of service to. So again, just another preposterous thing out of his mouth. Trump's war of DEI has become a signature of his first 2 weeks in office after he signed an executive order ending DEI offices and initiatives across the federal workforce, ended affirmative action enforcement for federal contractors, and ordered the cessation of illegal preferences and discrimination consistent with enforcement of civil rights laws. On Friday, Trump said an FAA commitment to hiring people with disabilities was one reason why our country was going to hell. But on Sunday, the Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat, told NBC's Meet the Press that to say the crash has to do with the person's color of their skin or their gender, I think that's just poor leadership, and especially at a time where any president is supposed to be the consoler in chief. Not to mention that it's Black History Month, but okay. As investigators work to establish the sequence of events that led to the mid-air collision, Kelly said, it's often not one thing that causes a major aviation accident like this. Trump, he added, did not have the appropriate information. Well, that's never stopped him before, and clearly does not have the information in this case. So he's never... Not having the information has never stopped Donald Trump before, but to add to that, it's never stopped people for voting for him before either, right? So again, we're complicit. J.D. Vance said during an appearance on Fox News Sunday Morning, Futures stood by Trump's remarks linking DEI hiring practices to the crash. He said Trump was not blaming anybody in particular, but that DEI practices had led to air traffic controller shortages. The president made very clear that he wasn't blaming anybody, but he was being very explicit about the fact that DEI policies have led our air traffic controllers to be short-staffed. That is a scandal. Thankfully, it's a scandal that the president has stopped, Vance told Fox News' Maria Bartiromo. Vance said it was important to investigate everything, adding, but let's just say the person at the controls didn't have enough staffing around him or her because we were turning people away because of DEI reasons. And I have read multiple articles that said, like, yes, the person who was at the controls didn't have enough staffing around them, but it wasn't because they were turning away people because of DEI reasons. It's because of what Trump did when he sat down in the Oval Office immediately and did away with DEI and had people fired because they were DEI hires, right? So they really flipped that. It's like, yeah, I am short-staffed now because you said all these DEI hires shouldn't be here anymore. So it's like, I guess it's because of DEI, but it's because of you turning back DEI, not because of DEI existing. Those roles were filled, you know? There is a very direct connection between the policies of the last administration and short-staffed air traffic controllers, he added. It has been reported that one air traffic controller was on duty at Reagan National Airport when the crash occurred on Wednesday evening, and not two as typically on duty to direct airplanes and helicopters at that time. And that poor person, too, that poor person that now has to live with this because they showed up to their job and they didn't have enough support. And I think anyone who's worked any job ever that involves working with other people knows how difficult it is when your coworker doesn't show up for whether it be a valid reason or not, and then you're stuck doing the job of multiple people. That sucks, and that is not fair that that person now has to live with these deaths on his, or I don't know if it's his or her shoulders. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy told CNN that air traffic control staffing shortages dated to the Obama administration when some DEI principles that were brought into air traffic control. Interesting, because that's not when the crash happened. But Duffy also pointed to new hiring under the previous Trump administration and the impact of the pandemic when graduate flight controllers could not get training in control towers. We're going to surge air traffic controllers, he said. But Duffy declined to point to specific evidence to back up Trump's DEI claims, but said the previous administration was focused on changing the name from cockpit to flight deck or notice to airman. They want to change it to notice to air mission. So I see what they're saying. Like, they're making a lot of nitpicky changes. And please, we've talked about nitpicky name changes on this show till the cows come home. And I agree, it's a waste of everyone's time and energy. But also, perhaps we're living in a world that was completely built for men, and maybe it's not a conversation that needs to be a month-long argument between Fox News and the New York Times, and maybe we could just all agree that it doesn't need to be called cockpit anymore, or that I don't fucking care. I truly don't care what it's called. You can call it the pussy pit for all. I don't care what it's called. Fly the plane correctly. And have these people have staff. Our mission since the start has been safety, Duffy added. When you don't focus on safety and you focus on social justice or the environment, bad things happen. I don't care your race, your religion, your color, your sex, your sexual preference. I don't care about any of that. I just want the best and the brightest keeping Americans safe. ... And in my opinion, that's white men. Okay, cool. Finish that sentence for you. All right, moving on to because I feel like there's been a lot of negative news and everyone has been just absolutely collapsing into hysteria. I wanted to give a Diva of the Week award to New York Governor Kathy Hochul. I do not always agree with her. I often do not. In fact, I definitely think she's in cahoots with Mayor Eric Adams, who obviously is doing a terrible job. And I'm not just saying that because I'm running for mayor. He just is. Ask literally any New Yorker. Ask half of his staff that has stepped down, in fact. This is from CBSNews.com. She has done some really great work this week in protecting reproductive freedom. So much so that other states are taking notice, and I want to give accolades where accolades are due, right? Because just as much as we spend so much time talking about the negative things our politicians are doing, we also have to talk about the positive things, because you can definitely see how if you enter politics to make positive change, how very quickly it can just devolve into everyone being unhappy and airing their grievances to you. And you're like, well, why am I here? Like, I really did want to make a change, you know? So again, this is from CBSNews.com. New York to further shield doctors from abortion lawsuits after Louisiana indictment. New York Governor Kathy Hochul has taken another step to protect doctors in the state who prescribe abortion medications. Monday's announcement came just days after a New York doctor was indicted by a grand jury in Louisiana for allegedly prescribing abortion pills online. Hochul signed legislation enabling physicians prescribing abortion medication to ask pharmacies to print only their practices on the prescription label and withhold their personal names. The change takes effect immediately. And I love that too, because she saw a problem, she saw an injustice, she said, absolutely not. And not only are we solving this, we're solving this today, right? Which shows that when someone wants something done and really works to get it pushed through, like, it is possible. If you want something to take effect immediately, like, it is possible, but we got to work together. Trying to have another level of protection for these doctors who are out there on the front lines doing what they know is right, what they were trained to do. We must be there to support them, the governor said at the bill signing. Hochul said she would not cooperate with any extradition order for the doctor charged in Louisiana. Last Friday, a grand jury in West Baton Rouge Parish, Louisiana, indicted Dr. Margaret Carpenter and her company for allegedly prescribing abortion pills online to a pregnant minor. Prosecutors said the girl experienced a medical emergency after taking the medication and had to be treated at a hospital. It's unclear how far along she was in her pregnancy. The case appears to be the first criminal charges against a doctor accused of sending abortion pills to another state since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. And to people who saying, well, she is a minor and she experienced a medical emergency, I would push back and say, well, maybe if she didn't live in Louisiana, she wouldn't have been having to order abortion pills online. Okay? She wouldn't have. And this, let's just take a moment right here, because this reminds me. So part of what I had to do to run for mayor was open a political account. Okay, you have to open a political bank account. It's a very specific type of account. Most banks don't do them because, quite frankly, it seems to be a huge pain in the ass for the bank as well as for the person who has the bank account, me. So I got the bank account from the approved bank. It was TD Bank. There's no reason to gatekeep this information. If you want to run for something in New York City, Bank of America doesn't do it anymore. TD Bank does do it, though. Chase doesn't do it either. And some of the questions that they asked me when I was trying to enable things like ACH payments, and even in the initial application for the account, they asked me if I ever use the money to pay for or fund abortion services or sex work. Those are two specific. There was a long list of things, but those are the two specific ones that jumped out to me. So just know, like, your banks are watching you. This is you're being watched. We already knew sex workers were being watched, but specifically the language talked about abortion funds because that is on high level watch. I found that to be very interesting. It's so funny because I'm just telling you everything that's going on, and I'm like, hopefully none of all of this I'm allowed to say, but like there should be no reason that this is private information, right? It's information that you would have come across naturally had you been running for a seat in government anyway. So I'm just telling you, there is so much that is going on that we don't know about, and I'm gonna tell everybody everything I can. All right. The case appears to be the first criminal charges against a doctor accused of sending abortion pills to another state since the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Louisiana has a near total abortion ban, and physicians convicted of performing abortions, including with pills, face up to 15 years in prison, $200,000 in fines, and the loss of their medical license. Carpenter was previously sued by the Attorney General of Texas for allegations of sending abortion pills to the state, though the case did not involve criminal charges. So that is the update on that. Go, Kathy Hochul. Amazing move. We need to be making big bold moves to contradict, to go against any of this bullshit that the Trump administration is trying to serve to us. Okay. Let's see. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons over on Patreon. Again, I do want to concentrate specifically on campaign funds right now, but thank you to everyone who is already a Patreon member. And of course, if you're not interested, if you're not interested in donating to a political campaign, but you are interested in donating to the Without a Country Patreon and getting that one exclusive video news story every week, please go ahead and do that. Obviously, there are many reasons why you might not be interested in my political campaign. You might not agree with my policies and my platform, and that's obviously, you have to agree with my policies and my platform, or me, or some part of the campaign to donate, and I understand that. So I thank you anyway that you're contributing to my life and to the messages that I want to get out to the world. And so let's give a salute to our dictator, Hannah Pendergrass. Hello to one of our new capitalist pigs, Hannah Booth, and our newest cuties, Vanessa C. and Kevin Shea. If you want to become a patron, please head over to patreon.com/withoutacountry. And you can do so for as little as $6 a month. Okay. Let's see. I did have a segment here called From the Desk of the Mayor. I've kind of already talked about my candidacy a good amount. But just to tack on some thoughts I had this week about people voting and why they vote who they vote for, why they vote for who they vote for, and why they vote for the issues that they vote for, right? Something that I've really learned, especially in the past year with the presidential election and with preparing to run for office myself, that people are voting right now in America as if they're the only people in the world. So families are voting as if their family is the only one who exists. Parents are voting as if their families are the only one who exists. Individuals are voting as if they're the only people in the world that exist. And then a few, and that's for the most part, right? And I know if you might be watching and saying, well, no, I vote for the greater good. I do too. And I'm not saying that anything about that makes us better. It just makes us not the majority. And so we have to keep that in mind when we're running for office and when we're talking about politics and when we're trying to make the case to get a certain party to be appealing to the average person, right? Because of a few very loud liberals have convinced us that some ideas that most of America, whether or not you think they are, most of America thinks these are extreme ideas or ideas that don't personally affect them. And whether or not it's extreme, that's kind of up to your own political and social opinions. But what is not an opinion is that a lot of these ideas don't affect most Americans. And so they're not going to vote to protect these groups of people. A great example is how big of a player the issue of, transgender people, quite frankly, existing was in the last presidential election. There is so much talk from the left about supporting these individuals, and I don't think at all the conversation should be to not to, but I don't think it's what we should be focusing on, right? Because any progressive who gets elected is going to naturally advocate for those groups of people, we hope. But what Democrats want to hear, or what people who used to be a part of the Democratic Party want to hear, are solutions for the majority of everyday working class people, which is what the Democratic Party was initially about. And now it's become about a couple groups of people that aren't the most of us, that aren't the majority of us. And while I do personally agree, these groups need protection badly, it can't consistently be the talking point that we're running with. Otherwise, the Democrats are going to keep losing. It really reminded me of the controversial points that Dave Chappelle made a couple specials back, where he complained that kind of trans issues pushed to the front of the line, and we haven't even come close to solving racism against Black Americans in this country yet. Well, now the thoughts of Dave Chappelle have pretty much revealed themselves to be the thoughts of the majority of Americans, right? That we're spending a lot of time talking about issues, and everyone's like, well, what about us? What about these kind of, average working class Americans who perhaps their stories aren't as engaging or interesting or topical or in vogue as stories about trans individuals, but they affect a lot more people. And that doesn't mean those people are more important. It just is truly a numbers game, right? And the Democrats have to get better at playing a numbers game if we are going to win elections. Did you watch Dave Chappelle's monologue from a couple weeks ago on Saturday Night Live, Michael?
No, I've been out of the Dave Chappelle business for a few years now.
Oh, interesting. What got you out of the Dave Chappelle business? I'm not in I'm just in the comedy business.
I mean, I don't think comedy. I don't know, man. You just get to a certain point where you're not a comic anymore.
I mean, George Carlin is so many people's favorite comedians, but that's kind of how I felt about George Carlin the whole time.
I don't know. I mean, look, I could always go back to...
He's not making me laugh. George Carlin makes me think. He doesn't make me laugh very often.
I don't know, dude. The concept of fire the director of Homeland Security and send in dudes with Wisconsin cheese and beer farts to smoke out the Afghanis, I was like, yo, as a young, angry kid post 9/11, that was fun for me.
Mm-hmm. I see.
Chappelle is literally going on YouTube and being like, I was in that same town as George Floyd once, and like, come on, man, dude, stop making everything about you.
Well, I was about to say he makes the mistake that we've seen a lot of comedians make. I talk about Ellen DeGeneres making the mistake a lot, where these people become so rich and so famous that they are completely removed from the rest of society, and they Dave Chappelle spends so much time talking about how great he is and how rich he is, and I go, well, even if you are as great as you say you are, and even if you are as rich as you say you are, no one wants to hear that, especially in a country where so many people feel like they're suffering. Or are suffering. Well, I was going to see if we could watch the monologue together because Christina said it was really thought-provoking, and I haven't watched it yet, so I was going to see if we could do a live reaction. That being said, is this going to get us knocked off YouTube?
Playing SNL's content?
Yes.
Likely. I can see if I can find... If anyone has ripped it and successfully put it on X, formerly known as Twitter,
right?
I can probably play that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll move on with the show then while you're looking for that. But I just thought that would be interesting. We certainly have a ton to get to. We'll head over to the New York Times, who, I think is secretly loving the Trump administration because they have so much to write about.
I found a 17-minute version.
It's 17 minutes?
It's Chappelle. What else do they got on SNL? Marcello?
I mean, he's blowing up.
I love Marcello. He stopped being receptive to my booking requests. He's that successful. I'm not.
Oh, he unfollowed me on Instagram. I go, bitch.
He unfollowed you?
I go, bitch.
Ooh, that hurts.
We used to talk to each other nonstop at the Grizzly Pear.
Dog, yeah, when he was barking for spots.
It's fine. Fine. Listen, that's what happens when young people get famous. It all goes to their head, and that's okay. He's on his own journey. I'm not mad. I'm just kind of like, it's just so hard to see so many people like, you really want someone to react to celebrity in a positive way. And it just happens so gosh darn rarely. And it really breaks my heart to see people that I really, really liked him. I'm not saying I don't like him anymore, but like, I thought that was tacky.
young bulls will be young bulls, but
Yeah.
My point is
Also, maybe it has nothing to do with fame. Maybe I just annoyed him, and then all the respect in the world. if Marcelo, if you unfollowed me because I annoyed you, we're cool. If I unfollowed you because you're too famous for me, we're not cool.
I'm just saying.
Also, we have the same agent, so how famous are you really? Yeah.
I'm just saying they can't do 90 minutes of Domingo. Like, they're gonna let Chappelle go as long as Chappelle wants to go.
Right.
The guy doesn't do stand-up anymore and put it out. Like,
right.
This is the one time we're not getting a special from Chappelle this year. This might be the most content we get from him. They're not gonna cut him off at 10 minutes.
Right. All right. So do we take a stab at it?
Yeah, let's see what happens.
All right. I love a little live reaction to Chappelle. And again, I've never seen this before, but Christina watched it, recommended it to me as something that is, politically relevant, which is why we would be watching it on this show. All right. So sorry to anyone who was watching live. We did end up getting kicked off of YouTube during Dave Chappelle's monologue. So that was just, I guess, for me and Mike to enjoy personally, because we were not going to be able to include that in the YouTube version.
Well, I thought we might be able to, and here's the thing: we watched it fresh. I'll include a link to it in the description for the episode. So, if you're hearing this and you have no clue what we're talking about with the Dave Chappelle thing, just click the link below in the description.
Yeah, we watched the monologue that he gave the Saturday before Donald Trump took office on the show. I had been recommended to me as something that was thought-provoking, and I hadn't gotten around to watching it, so we wanted to live react on the show. But unfortunately, the forces that be said no. So we're going to move on to the New York Times article, kind of just giving us a live updates on where things stand in the Trump administration. And they're doing, live updates. So this is just where things stand as of now, Wednesday night. Shrinking the intelligence agencies, the White House ordered the CIA to send an unclassified email listing employees hired in the past 2 years, part of the Elon Musk-led effort to drastically slash the federal workforce. The CIA, as well as the National Security Agency, began offering employees the option to stop working, then resign, effective September 30th. The nation's largest federation of unions started a campaign to push back against attempts to cut jobs. Transgender athletes, President Trump signed an executive order intended to prevent transgender students from participating in women's sports. The order directs agencies to pull federal funding from schools that do not comply and follows Mr. Trump's frequent denouncements of transgender athletes during his presidential campaign. And it seems like he's doing a lot to kind of pull money from public education, which is for a variety of reasons. Birthright citizenship, a federal judge in Maryland blocked President Trump's executive order that sought to unilaterally eliminate automatic citizenship for children born to undocumented or temporary immigrants on U.S. soil. The nationwide preliminary injunction is a more durable block than the 14-day restraining order issued last month by a court in Seattle. Gaza takeover, this was the big one of the week. Trump administration officials tried on Wednesday to walk back Mr. Trump's suggestion that the United States take over the Gaza Strip and drive out the Palestinian population. This man is really trying to start World War III. I'm going to go right into the Gaza proposal now just to talk about that, because I think that was perhaps the wildest thing that he did this week. And again, I don't want to give consistent airtime to this guy, but this was something else. This is from the Washington Post. 4 explanations for Trump's shocking Gaza proposal, breaking down the president's suggestion and whether it's a distraction, a negotiating ploy, or something worse. And this is an analysis by Aaron Blake. President Donald Trump on Tuesday offered the most untethered idea of an increasingly untethered second term. Again, we knew it was going to be untethered. If you expected anything less, I guess you haven't been paying attention. Trump said at a news conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that the United States will take over the Gaza Strip, will own it long term, and will redevelop it. I'm surprised he didn't say there was going to put a Six Flags Gaza there, even floating turning it into the Riviera of the Middle East. Trump's promise has shocked the Middle East, his opponents, and his domestic allies. Pursuing such a course would mean the displacement of 2 million Palestinians from their land. Trump proposed setting up various domains for them elsewhere and injecting Americans into the cauldron of the Middle East. It would also, in all likelihood, require a massive mobilization of U.S. troops, despite Trump's years-long attacks on the concept of foreign nation building. The immediate question is, of course, whether he's actually serious. Here are a few theories. Number one, it's a distraction. An often overwrought criticism of the media is that it succumbs to Trump's distractions. Of course, because we click on it, we read it, they make money. The wild ideas he floats that are intended to avert journalists and the public's gaze from other, more prosaic and boring, but more legitimate controversies. But just because that theory has been overwrought doesn't mean it's not a real strategy. And there's no question that Trump, more than ever, is flooding the zone with bold and often legally dubious actions that challenge everyone to keep up. It's working, former Trump White House advisor Stephen K. Bannon told my colleagues late last month. It's just stunning to me what they're doing, and it's not getting covered because it's too much. They're overwhelming the system. Trump's Gaza announcement very notably came even as the opposition has suddenly mobilized much more to combat his and Elon Musk's hostile takeover of the government. Just before Trump made his announcement, the Washington Post reported on how many of Musk's maneuvers to seize control of massive government functions could well be illegal. The New York Times' Charlie Savage has a good piece in the same vein about how Trump has opened the throttle on defying legal limits. So many of these things are so wildly illegal that I think they're playing a quantity game and assuming the system can't react to all this illegality at once, David Super, a law professor at Georgetown Law School, told the Post. Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, and Representative Dan Goldman, Democrat, New York, are urging everyone not to play along. I have news for you. We aren't taking over Gaza, Murphy posted on X late Tuesday, but the media and the chattering class will focus on it for a few days, and Trump will have succeeded in distracting everyone from the real story, the billionaires seizing government to steal from regular people. But as ever with Trump, the dilemma is determining what's real and what's not, and ignoring proposals like this one is perilous too. What if he actually does intend to send U.S. troops to Gaza, but that didn't get a thorough airing because we assumed it was a bluff? And even Trump merely floating this idea has the potential to reignite a region where we just saw a peace deal by suggesting the mass and permanent displacement of Palestinian Arabs from their land. Other Arab countries are already rebuking that. We've also seen before how some of Trump's wilder ideas have been dismissed as unserious, only to have him follow through. 2, it's a negotiating ploy. A related but slightly different theory is that this is indeed a ploy, but one intended for the Middle East rather than the domestic political debate. It would be similar to Trump recently threatening Canada and Mexico with huge tariffs, only for him to pull back for seemingly modest concessions. This could be Trump threatening the unthinkable to force Middle Eastern players to pursue a more sustainable peace. It would basically be, if you guys can't figure it out, we're coming in. Could that make Hamas more willing to cede power? Could it pressure Saudi Arabia to normalize relations with Israel, stop insisting on a Palestinian state, and help in the post-war process? Those appear to be some of the more likely aims. Netanyahu notably didn't explicitly endorse Trump's plan and treated it more as an idea than a firm U.S. intention. He praised Trump's willingness to puncture conventional thinking, but suggested the ideas might not align. He has a different idea, and I think it's worth paying attention to this, Netanyahu said. We're talking about it. He's exploring it with his people, with his staff. And don't forget that while Trump has been decidedly un-Reagan in his approach to asserting U.S. leadership worldwide, he has made it clear that he sees his moves in the Middle East as a big part of his legacy. And when you're a narcissist, you really are thinking about your legacy nonstop. 3, he's leaning into the madman theory even more. You might remember in Trump's first term that people often invoked the madman theory. The idea is basically to make other countries believe you're completely unpredictable and capable of anything to keep them in line. Richard M. Nixon employed it in his dealings with the Soviet Union, and Trump clearly sees the benefit of this. In an October interview with the Wall Street Journal editorial board, Trump responded thusly to a question about using military force to protect Taiwan from China and its president Xi Jinping. I wouldn't have to because he respects me and he knows I'm fucking crazy, Trump said of Xi. And it's interesting because I talked about that theory, not by name, but kind of vaguely last week when we were talking to the immigration lawyer, kind of saying these big ballsy moves that Trump makes sometimes do seem to work, right? A longtime Trump advisor echoed that in comments to Axios late Tuesday. He's moving the goalposts of crazy, the advisor said. This time around, he's not intimidated by headlines or pundits. He's going to throw out there whatever he feels like throwing out there. His sudden imperialist streak is very real. There is no question that threatening an occupation of Gaza is antithetical to how Trump has pitched his foreign policy for many years. Trump has emphasized America first and said the United States had no business nation building in the Middle East. Our policy of never-ending war, regime change, and nation building is being replaced by the clear-eyed pursuit of American interests, he said in 2019. He said repeatedly in 2016 that the era of nation building had ended. Trump is now not only talking about nation building, but also what critics have said would necessarily amount to the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. But in a way, it's of a piece with his increasingly imperialistic tendencies. He has talked even more earnestly about claiming Greenland and the Panama Canal, even leaving open the possibility of using military coercion to do it. He has talked about making Canada the 51st state. He devoted part of his inaugural address 2 weeks ago to the idea of manifest destiny, the idea being that U.S. expansion is our divine right. And in comments that quickly resurfaced late Tuesday, Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner said in March that Gaza's waterfront property could be very valuable. He suggested one could move the people out and then clean it up. So truly looking at turning it into some kind of a resort. Nobody espouses the potential of waterfront property like Trump, who on Tuesday echoed Kushner's comments by saying Gaza could be the Riviera of the Middle East. It's possible all of this imperialistic talk is bluster, but it's also possible that Trump feels freed up in his second term to change up his America First credo, which he leveraged for political gain for years, and make the expansion of the United States in areas he actually cares about a key plank of his legacy. And to the extent he does aim for that, there will surely be fewer guardrails. Gone are the establishment foreign policy minds from his first administration who would have cautioned him against things like this. While Senate Republicans often resisted Trump's foreign policy impulses from 2017 through 2021, they have demonstrated significantly less will to fight him in a second term. In other words, who knows? But it's probably worth understanding his motivations and what this Gaza threat, even if it's just a threat, could mean. All right, so moving on to the RFK hearing. And this just keeps kind of advancing. Because, like, how many more rounds until he actually is in? Because I thought he had officially been confirmed, but am I wrong? No, the panel advances his nominations, but it's not. I think the vote just happening today? Do we know? He's on track for it to happen. It looks like it's going to happen, but it has not apparently happened yet. I just wanted to go over from Rolling Stone. They did an article about the most alarming moments from RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing, and I thought that would be interesting because there seemed to be a lot of alarming moments. The Senate Finance Committee grilled the HHS nominee about his stances on vaccines, abortion, and more. Again, this is from Rolling Stone. how the hell do I get this pop-up ad off of my thing? Mike, can you log in? I don't know why it lets me log in at home but not here. I don't understand why I can read in a Rolling Stone article here at home but not here. It's really the strangest thing. I can start it, though.
It's up on the screen.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Let's play this game where Corinne has to read from the farthest away ever. My weekly eye test. Okay. So I already read that part. Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s long and tumultuous road to Donald Trump's cabinet faced its toughest test on Wednesday when the vaccine conspiracy theorist and former presidential candidate appeared before the Senate Finance Committee to defend his nomination as Health and Human Services Secretary. Once a staunch critic of Trump, Kennedy ran a failed third-party bid for the presidency that ended with an endorsement of Trump and Trump pledging to let Kennedy oversee the healthcare policies of his administration. Again, I mean, just another example of like why we can't trust politicians, okay? So my recommendation, what's your problem, Mike? Why are you shaking your head?
The guy came to Kamala and said, hey, do I have a seat at the table? And she laughed at him. Get out of here.
What does that mean? What?
He did the right thing. He tried to stay with the Democratic Party and got laughed out of the room.
That's not doing the right thing. Doing the right thing is not trying to just advance your career. It's following your beliefs.
Advancing his career? Who cares about that? He cares about making America healthy.
Yeah, but the thing is, if he is someone who thinks that Trump is a bad guy, and now he's going to just kind of like backpedal, no one is going to believe you or take you seriously. This is the problem. So either you think Trump's a bad guy or you don't, and you don't to win a political seat, you actually don't need to attack your competition. You know, there are people who I'm running against for mayor who I think are bad people, and there are other people who I don't think are bad people, but the argument I need to make is that I would do a better job, not that they are bad people. We just are so extreme, and then when you have to backpedal, you're like, okay, well, I obviously can't believe you because 2 months ago you were saying this guy was a bad guy, and now you're signing on and shaking hands and working with him, right? So that's something I'm really conscientious of, is that I'm not going to say people are bad people if I don't think that they're bad people. And there's plenty of people who are running who I don't think are bad people.
You can think someone's a bad person, but they're the one willing to give you a seat at the table.
Don't agree.
Do the most good you can with whatever office they will give you.
That is a extremely slippery slope.
Or get nothing done and stand on your principles.
Yeah, he's going to have to bend his principles, and he already has started backpedaling on numerous issues to sit at the table with Donald Trump, because that's the kind of table Donald Trump invites people to. Back to the article, please. I mean, we just did a whole thing on how he's really replacing the government with loyalists. HHS has a budget of over $1.7 trillion and over 80,000 employees. It's a monumental task, and many believe Kennedy is not up to the task. His nomination has been opposed by 75 Nobel Prize laureates, thousands of doctors, and medical groups. On Tuesday, former U.S. Ambassador Caroline Kennedy wrote an open letter to senators urging them to oppose her cousin's nomination, calling him an addict to attention and power who had endangered lives with his medical conspiracy mongering. He also used to blend live animals. Ahead of Wednesday's hearing, Carrie Kennedy Meltzer, Kennedy's niece and a primary care physician, provided a trove of her emails with her uncle to Stat News. In the emails covering much of the COVID-19 pandemic, the HHS nominee espoused skepticism about the disease's severity and pushed conspiracies related to vaccines, including his long-held insistence that childhood vaccinations may be linked to autism. Kennedy has no medical training, has never run a government agency, much less one mandated to safeguard public health on a national level, and has dedicated much of his career to peddling false medical information to the masses. Senators tasked with deciding whether to advance Kennedy's nomination to the Senate for a full vote grilled him on his view of vaccines, his financial stake in lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies, and his lack of experience in the medical field. The hearing was peppered with pointed questions from lawmakers, disruptions by protesters, and Kennedy's sloppy attempts to dispel his long record of medical misinformation. It doesn't matter what you come here and say that isn't true. That's not reflective of what you really believe, Senator Michael Bennet, Democrat from Colorado, said in one confrontation with Kennedy. Because unlike other jobs we're confirming around this place, this is a job where it's life and death. Here are some of the most alarming moments of the hearing. He didn't deny some insane things he said about diseases. Democratic senators on the committee dissected Kennedy's vaccine conspiracies in detail, and in one stunning moment, he openly admitted to one. Senator Michael Bennet, again, Democrat from Colorado, drilled down on specific claims he's made about common vaccinations and deadly diseases. Did you say Lyme disease is a highly likely militarily engineered blow weapon?
Bioweapon.
Bioweapon. Sorry, I can't see. Bioweapon, Bennett asked. I probably did say that, Kennedy responded.
Hold up. Mm-hmm. Is that one not true?
Find me a source that
it
that
came
proves.
from Lyme, Connecticut, right near a medical research lab that was doing tests on bioweapons such as Lyme's disease.
I think
that one's real.
I think that if he said I probably did say that he also doesn't think that's true anywhere.
Or he just wants to get confirmed. No. There's a reason it's named after Lyme, Connecticut. Lyme.
Okay, so where's the fact? Where?
I'll look it up as soon as I can't pull it up while you're reading this article.
Was a result of a lab leak. Okay. Bennett then asked Kennedy if he had once wrote that it's undeniable that African AIDS is an entirely different disease than Western AIDS. I'm not sure, Kennedy replied, and lied about others. During Bennett's same line of questioning, Kennedy denied that he had once claimed that exposure to pesticides causes children to become transgender, as the senator put it. Okay. Kennedy has actually made the claim several times with slight variations in its delivery. In multiple instances, Kennedy suggested that environmental chemicals alleged to change the gender presentation of frogs could similarly affect children. The nominee also insisted that he had been taken out of context when he claimed in 2023 that the coronavirus was targeted to attack Caucasians and Black people and to spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. Well, I guess that's why I didn't get it. That's really cleared that up for me. Kennedy insisted in his own opening remarks that he is not anti-vaccine. I am pro-safety. I worked for years to raise awareness about the mercury and toxic chemicals in fish, and nobody called me anti-fish, he said. I feel like that's a great bumper sticker. Get that printed up. Virtually every senator, including ranking member Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon, pushed back on the claim that Kennedy was not anti-vaccine. Wyden pointed to a July interview on the Lex Friedman podcast where Kennedy said there's no vaccine that is safe and effective. The nominee claimed that he was, okay. So again, just like these clips that you guys will send to me online, be like, oh, it must be true. I saw it on the Lex Friedman podcast. That's why I say to be wary of people like that. Where Kennedy, the nominee claimed that he was taken out of context and interrupted before he could finish his thought, but has given conflicting explanation to justify the quote. At one point, he claimed he intended to add that vaccines were not safe or effective if you ask for the product to be measured against other medical products with placebo-controlled double-blind studies. On Wednesday, Kennedy changed his rationale, telling senators that he meant to say that every person, every medicine has people who are sensitive to them, including vaccines, before the quote was cut off. Wyden also noted Kennedy's writing about the measles vaccine. In 2020, you wrote that parents are led to believe measles is a deadly disease and vaccines are necessary, safe, and effective, Wyden quoted. Reality is measles are, in fact, deadly and highly contagious, the senator added, something you should have learned after your lies contributed to the deaths of 83 people, most of them children, in a measles outbreak in Samoa, which I believe I read I think we talked about that a while back, referencing the work of Kennedy and the anti-vax nonprofit he founded, Children's Health Defense, and their alleged promotion of anti-vaccine sentiment in Samoa before 2019 measles outbreak. He's like that crazy white savior lady from the HBO doc that we watched. The outbreak was sparked after 2 children died after being administered improperly prepared measles vaccines. While the deaths were caused by human error, widespread panic ensued over the safety of the medication. When questioned about his visit to Samoa, Kennedy denied having any role in the deaths and claimed his visit to the island nation had nothing to do with the vaccine. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat from Massachusetts, noted that during his visit to the country, just a few months before the spike in cases, Kennedy met with the prime minister to discuss vaccinations, met with local anti-vaccine activists, and wrote a letter suggesting the outbreak could have been caused by defective vaccines. In his opening statement, Kennedy proudly declared to the hearing room that his children are vaccinated. He said he will scrutinize the abortion pill. Several senators questioned Kennedy regarding his stance on Republicans' desire to continue curtailing access to abortion care, particularly by restricting access to commonly used abortion medications like mifepristone. During questioning by Senator James Lankford, Republican Oklahoma, Kennedy said President Trump has made it clear to me that one of the things he is not taking a position on yet is this abortion drug, but made it clear to me that he wants to look at the safety issues. I will ask the NIH and FDA to do that. Later in the hearing, Kennedy added that whatever Trump decided to do regarding the drug, he would implement those policies. And what Trump is going to do, let me look into my crystal ball, is somehow find something that seems like it's unsafe, therefore he can ban it, which is what he wants to do anyway.
Didn't we open this show with a girl being very sick from taking one of these?
Yeah, and we talked about that earlier in the show. And I'm guessing I'm guessing what happened is like probably like she's a minor. She doesn't know what she's doing. Maybe she's not taking the right dose. There was not enough information provided. It's not saying that it is unsafe medication. Also, going through a pill abortion, I've interviewed many people who have done it. It's a really extreme process and a lot of stuff happens to your body. And like, yeah, you do bleed a lot. But guess what's harder? Raising a child.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, I've talked to women who did it the pill way, and they say it's pain unlike anything they've ever felt before.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what happens. Like, you have to do that if you have to live in secrecy, if you can't tell any medical professionals in the state that you live in, if you can't tell your parents, like that's the problem with all these laws. It's preventing people from accessing something that they're going to access anyway. So it's like they have to access it safely. And yeah, I'm guessing however old that minor was, whether she's the oldest minor there is, which is 17, yeah, you probably shouldn't be going through an abortion by yourself in your bathroom. That's not good. And this is exactly what we knew was going to happen as these laws or this access to reproductive health care gets pushed back. This is the same. When people talk about women are going to get abortions whether or not they're legal, this is exactly what we're talking about. They're going to want to access them one way or another. So why don't we make sure that they're doing it safely? Doctors who are trying to help shouldn't be going to prison for that.
I'm not disagreeing with anything that you're saying. I'm just saying for you to say Trump's going to find something to make it seem like it's unsafe.
Yeah, but
it's open the show with
mifepristone is not they're like it's like they're finding this is what they do. They find the one time out of 700 where something does go wrong, and we don't know if the reason that it went wrong was because she's a minor and didn't properly read the label,
not able to get care in the state by a doctor.
Exactly. Like you need to. Yes, like when you are prescribed something, you still need to follow the directions on the bottle, or you need to insert it into the proper part of your body. Like we don't know what happened, but overall, deaths or casualties. I mean, So as of December 31st, 2024, there were 36 reports of deaths in patients associated with mifepristone since the product was approved in September 2000, including 2 cases of ectopic pregnancy. So this is from the FDA government website. And so in 24 years, 36 deaths is a very low number for a medicine, in my opinion. That's a little over 1 person dying per year. And I mean, mifepristone, how many people have access? I mean, I'm guessing a lot. Well over half a million, it looks like, but I don't even know when that's status from. But just to put it into perspective, because it's like, look up anything like how many deaths, like Ozempic, for example.
Somebody told me yesterday there's an incurable disease that people are getting from taking semaglutide.
I'm guessing are they talking about bone density loss, like osteoporosis?
I don't know.
There was a Instagram reel circulating about that. So Ozempic, which has been approved for a much shorter period of time, has already associated with 162 deaths, according to FDA data. So I just wanted to pick something that was like kind of in the zeitgeist right now to compare it to, basically. Okay, let's go back to this article. He keeps changing his stance on abortion. Before allying himself with Trump and his political machine, Kennedy was a lifelong liberal who openly defended reproductive freedoms and the right to abortion care. Throughout the hearing, as he was questioned about his plans for abortion and medication, Kennedy responded like a broken record. I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy. And this is what I'm talking about. It's not... Like, I understand your perspective, Michael, of like getting in any way you can and then doing good, but that's not what we see happening is the problem. We see people, you need a leader. Also, it's like part of it is Trump's fault, because like a good leader is able to step back and say like, this is what I think should happen, but hey, I have chosen you to be the expert in this area. In RFK, I've chosen you to be the area in health. So this is something I'm interested in, or this is something I'm worried about. You look into it. Not like Trump is going into it in the complete opposite way, which is this is the stance I have. Find me the medical data to back up this existing stance I already have. And again, we know that if you need a number or a poll to back something up and you look hard enough, or you fund enough surveys or polls or studies of your own, you can certainly make it happen. And that's the problem with them. All right. Let's see. At one point, Senator Maggie Hassan, Democrat, or Hassan, I think it is, Senator Maggie Hassan, Democrat, New Hampshire, called out the sudden shift in position. In 2023, you came to New Hampshire and said, I'm pro-choice. I don't think the government has any business telling people what they can or cannot do with their body. You also said we need to trust the women to make that choice because I don't trust government to make any choices. You have clearly stated in the past that bodily autonomy is one of your core values, Hassan continued. The question is, do you stand for that value or not? When was it that you decided to sell out the values you've had your whole life in order to be given power by President Trump? What are you telling us what you are telling us is that regardless of what you believe, regardless of what values you have, if President Trump tells you to do something, you are going to do it. That to me is unacceptable in a Secretary of Health and Human Services. Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent Vermont, also made a point to address Kennedy's pivot on the issue. I have never seen any major politician flip on that issue quite as quickly as you did, Sanders said. Why do you think people should have confidence in your consistency and in your work when you really made a major U-turn on an issue of that importance? He doesn't understand Medicaid or how the healthcare system works. A day after the Trump administration's Medicaid portal failed, threatening care for tens of millions of low-income Americans, Kennedy spoke What? Where? I can't see. Derisively? Derisively? I'm like, what does this say? It looks like a D. Derisively about the program, Americans don't, by and large, like the Affordable Care Act. People who are on it, they don't like Medicaid, they don't like Medicare, and they like private insurance. I don't know one person who likes private insurance, but I guess that's because also anything that's government run is also bad, but everyone is unhappy with their insurance. And if we're going to go by who is more happy, I actually know some people who have government assisted insurance because they are immigrants, and they have told me that they like that better than it seems like Americans like private insurance. Polling suggests this isn't accurate. A 2023 RFK survey found that Medicaid enrollees...
KFF survey.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. My eye test is failing. A 2023 KFF survey found that Medicaid enrollers are more likely to rate their insurance coverage positively than those with employer-sponsored insurance plans. Kennedy is correct that Affordable Care Act marketplace plans are less popular with their enrollees, but these are private insurance plans. A key difference between these marketplace plans and employer-sponsored plan is that they have higher out-of-pocket costs, and enrollees often bear more of the premium costs. He then posed a question to Democratic senators. Do you think all that money, the $900 billion that we're sending to Medicaid every year, has made Americans healthy? Do we think it's working for anybody? Are the premiums low enough? States are prohibited from imposing premiums on Medicaid beneficiaries in most cases. He signaled he wants to see more Medicare privatization. Kennedy said several times that Americans want to be on private insurance plans. When asked whether patients should move, rich people might, when moved from traditional Medicare coverage to privatized Medicare Advantage plans, he said that's their choice right now. He quickly added, I think more people would rather be on Medicare Advantage because it offers very good services. A majority of seniors eligible for Medicare are already on the private plans, as Kennedy noted. That's in part thanks to the first Trump administration's efforts to lure people to sign up for Medicare Advantage instead of traditional Medicare. Trump's conservative allies have recommended that Medicare auto-enroll new beneficiaries in private Medicare Advantage plans instead of the traditional Medicare program, which would speed up an end to traditional program and its foundational premise that seniors can go to any doctor or provider they choose. Medicare Advantage plans have narrow provider networks that limit the doctors that patients can see. They also frequently reject prior authorization requests and wrongfully deny claims for healthcare services, going so far as to use artificial intelligence and algorithms to erroneously deny services in bulk, even though the plans are technically required to cover the same services as traditional Medicare. As a result, the private plans often do not work well for sicker patients. And when those sicker patients seek to leave the program and enroll in traditional Medicare, they often find that is financially impossible. While private Medicare Advantage plans frequently deny necessary care, they have also for many years now systematically overbilled the government as if their patients are sicker than they really are. Altogether, the plans are enormous financial drain on the Medicare program. He refused to commit to not cash in from lawsuits against pharma companies. Kennedy's ethics and financial disclosures raised concerns about the millions the nominee has collected through referral fees from a law firm suing pharmaceutical companies and vaccine manufacturers. While Kennedy has agreed to sever his consulting relationship with the law firm, he intends to continue collecting referral commissions from the firm. Senator Warren asked Kennedy to commit to not taking fees from suing drug companies during his tenure and for a 4-year period after. Warren listed out a myriad of ways through which Kennedy could potentially use the position of HHS secretary to facilitate and sway lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies, reiterating that he only needed to commit not to profit financially off of them. Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies, Kennedy replied, attempting to dodge Warren's specific ask regarding his collection of lawsuit kickbacks. I am not, Warren countered. Have we had a single nominee come through who's made $2.5 million off of suing one of the entities that it would be regulated and plans to keep getting a take of every lawsuit in the future, she asked the committee. And they mic dropped on that. Okay, so that's interesting. Again, just like there was a lot of kind of, pieces online being like, can you believe he said this? Can you believe he said this? So I said, let's get an article kind of highlighting what is absolutely going on in that hearing. But again, I think he is going to be confirmed. But here we are. So real quick, before we get to our main story, just wanted to go over two. Normally these are international news pieces, so normally I would file these under could be worse, but could it be? It could be, but it's like, again, I don't want to play into the hysteria, but it seems like maybe not an appropriate time to use that as a title for this segment when these two countries seem to be doing better right now. So this is from Fox News, and it's in the section that they're calling on foxnews.com illegal immigrants. Really kind of wild that we're just writing that down. Colombian president urges illegal immigrants in U.S. to return home. Days after diplomatic spat, Petro had initially refused to accept deportation flights. And this is the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, is urging Colombian nationals in the U.S. illegally to return home, promising to provide loans to those who return days after being embroiled in a diplomatic controversy with the U.S. I asked undocumented Colombians in the U.S. to immediately leave their jobs in that country and return to Colombia as soon as possible, Petro said on X. Wealth is produced only by working people. The Department of Social Prosperity will seek to provide productive loans to returnees who enroll in its programs, he said. Let's build social wealth in Colombia. Petro had initially refused Sunday to take U.S. deportation flights carrying Colombian nationals, saying the U.S. cannot treat Colombian migrants as criminals. The Trump administration, in response, announced the immediate suspension of visa issuance and travel sanctions on government officials. President Donald Trump warned he would slap 25% tariffs on all goods from Colombia. And so it's like, okay, well, is he doing this, because he really means this and he wants to protect the people of Colombia, or is he doing this because he was threatened by Donald Trump? Your choice. Measures will continue until Colombia meets its obligations to accept the return of its own citizens. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, America will not back down when it comes to defending its national security interests. At first, Petro retaliated with his own 25% tariffs on U.S. goods. Petro insisted he would not accept the return of migrants who were not treated with dignity and respect and who had arrived shackled or on military planes. But the White House later said Colombia's president had caved to all of the president's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on U.S. military aircraft without limitation or delay. On Tuesday, 2 Colombian Air Force planes carrying deportees arrived in Bogota. On Friday, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce confirmed that visa processing in Bogota has resumed. Our commitment to work together with Colombia to advance our mutual interests remains steadfast, she said. So that's one update on that. And then the last update before we get to our main story, which is going to be about Elon Musk and his excessive access to our information, is actually from Motherly. And this is if you want to access it, it's actually mother.ly. But Germany just guaranteed miscarriage leave. Why doesn't the U.S.? It's a big step forward, but also it raises a glaring question for American women. Why don't we have anything like this in the U.S.? Germany just passed a groundbreaking law extending maternity leave protections to women who experience a miscarriage after the 13th week of pregnancy. This law recognizes the physical and emotional toll of pregnancy loss and gives women the option, but not the obligation, to take time off to recover. It's a big step forward, but it also raises a glaring question for American women. Why don't we have anything like that, like this in the U.S.? And if you know anyone who's been through a miscarriage, this is extremely needed. And I'm really, really glad that at least Germany is introducing this. Where the U.S. stands on miscarriage leave, spoiler, it doesn't. In the U.S. federal law, does not guarantee any paid leave for miscarriage, pregnancy loss, or stillbirth. The Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, provides up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave for serious health conditions, which could theoretically apply in some miscarriage cases, but only if you work for an employer with 50 or more employees and have been there for at least a year. That means millions of women don't qualify. Many working mothers, especially those in low-wage jobs, are left to navigate one of the most devastating moments of their lives while being forced to clock in for work or risk losing their jobs. Unlike Germany's approach, which acknowledges miscarriage as a legitimate health and recovery issue, the U.S. treats it like an unfortunate but personal matter that employers have no obligation to address. And I think this is not only a medical issue, it's not only a mental health issue, but it's also a stigma issue, right? So it's like, if this is some personal matter that employers have no obligation to address, like, it makes it seem like it's something that you should be ashamed of or you should be hiding, when in reality it is something that happens to many, many women. And I think if the government introduced something like miscarriage leave, paid miscarriage leave, it would not only be good for physical health and mental health, it would also be incredible to undo the stigma that is still associated with miscarriage. Like, if you have miscarriage leave, that's making miscarriage as normal as a thing as giving birth. And it is. Other countries offer more support, so why not here? Germany isn't alone in recognizing the need for workplace protections following pregnancy loss. India guarantees 6 weeks of paid leave for miscarriage. New Zealand grants 3 days of bereavement leave to both parents. The Philippines provides 60 days of paid leave for women who experience a miscarriage or emergency pregnancy termination. The UK is debating a new policy that would give 2 weeks of paid leave for miscarriage. Meanwhile, in the U.S., whether a woman gets time off after a miscarriage depends entirely on her employer. Some progressive companies, including Pinterest, Goldman Sachs, and Liberty Mutual, have started offering bereavement or medical leave for pregnancy loss, but this is voluntary, not required by law. That means the women who need this time off the most, hourly workers, single moms, women in physically demanding jobs, are often the least likely to get it. The bigger problem here, the U.S. doesn't support mothers, period. The lack of miscarriage leave is just one part of a much bigger issue. The U.S. is the only wealthy country in the world does not guarantee paid maternity leave at all. Most American women return to work just days or weeks after giving birth, often while still bleeding and sleep deprived because they can't afford unpaid time off. The U.S. also has some of the highest child care costs in the world, no universal health care, and companies that often penalize mothers for needing workplace flexibility. Expanding protections for miscarriage isn't just about pregnancy loss. It's about recognizing that women's health, recovery, and grief deserve time and support. What needs to change? Well, Germany's new law is an example of what happens when governments take maternal health seriously. The U.S. has a long way to go, but policies like paid family leave and bereavement leave for miscarriage would be a start. In the meantime, American women are left to rely on their employer's generosity or go back to work as if nothing happened. And that's a reality that needs to change. And certainly, with the administration being what it is right now, if abortion is murder, well, then miscarriage is certainly death and should be treated as such, right? And let's just see if they are following the themes that they say they hold in their heart, or if they aren't, right? You're pro-life? Okay, well then a miscarriage we can all agree is a death, and you should have bereavement time. Case closed. All right, let's get into our main story. Elon Musk has all of our social security numbers. So this first article is going to be from Vox, and then we'll go to The Hill for more of a right reach. Vox, obviously very far left. Elon Musk's secretive government IT takeover explained. Musk's growing influence over the government's digital infrastructure raises concerns about privacy and overreach. Billionaire Elon Musk and his band of young Silicon Valley engineers have gained access to IT systems controlling critical functions of the federal government, from the Treasury Department to the Small Business Administration. The problem is no one outside of the Trump administration really knows what Musk and his team at the newly created Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, are planning to do with that access. In the name of uncovering fat to trim, they now have the personal information of millions of Americans stored in government databases at their fingertips, and newfound influence over key parts of the federal bureaucracy long controlled by nonpartisan career officials. It's clear Musk has exceptional access to government data, but it's still not clear how much he can do with it. Most saliently, watchdogs and Democratic lawmakers suspect that Musk's endgame is not just visibility into the payments the government is making, but also control over them. This is all part of the cloud of confusion surrounding DOGE. White House, well, they want to keep us confused and keep us hysterical. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed Monday that Musk is operating in his capacity as a non-Senate confirmed special government employee, a category of employee that is typically brought on for a period of less than a year, hired for their expertise, and subject to less stringent conflicts of interest rules than other federal officials. Leavitt offered no further details on what Musk is working on, though she claimed he is abiding by all applicable federal laws. That claim will be subject to legal scrutiny. The litigation arm of Public Citizen, a left-leaning consumer rights advocacy group, sued the Trump administration Monday on behalf of workers whose personal information is stored in Treasury Department databases, alleging that officials broke privacy laws in giving DOGE access. Other groups have raised similar privacy concerns about databases at other federal agencies to which Musk's team has sought access. Adam Schwartz, privacy litigation director for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a digital rights advocacy group, said that reports of DOGE staff obtaining extraordinary access to government databases that contain sensitive personal information about millions of Americans marks a huge departure from privacy and security norms. Legal safeguards must be strictly enforced, he said. EFF is deeply concerned and learning all we can. Watchdog groups are also demanding more transparency into why DOGE is seeking access to these government IT systems in the first place, given their sensitivity and the host of potential conflicts of interest Musk brings, given his stakes in Tesla and SpaceX. One fear is that DOGE could use its newfound access to the federal government's payment system to slash the budget without Congress's approval. The Treasury Department wrote in a letter to Congress on Tuesday that Musk has read-only access to the payment system, at least for now. But if he were to gain operational control of it, Noah Bookbinder, executive director of the government oversight group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, said he is skeptical that Musk will use that access just to perform regular maintenance and do troubleshooting on tech problems. What we know and don't know about Musk's access. Musk and his team have rapidly sought to gain access to the IT systems of various government agencies and offices in recent days, including at least the Treasury, the Office of Personnel Management, and the Small Business Administration. Last week, Treasury's acting Deputy Secretary David Lebrick resigned after DOGE requested and was granted access to the Treasury's payment systems, which handle sensitive payments, including to Social Security and Medicare customers. DOGE also reportedly locked career civil servants out of OPM's computer systems, which contain the personal data of millions of federal employees and contractors. Federal employees sought a temporary restraining order Tuesday to shut down a private server that DOGE had connected to OPM's network to scrape sensitive employee information. SBA employees were also informed Monday that DOGE would be granted access to all SBA systems, including HR, contracts, and payment systems. The agency has supported over 100,000 financings to small businesses in the last year alone. Musk and his team have yet to publicly announce what they intend to do with all of the data. However, and that makes ethics watchdogs extremely nervous. Just from an accountability perspective, there is so much we don't know about what's going on, said Don Moynihan, a public policy professor at the University of Michigan and co-director of the Better Government Lab, which identifies technological solutions in government to improve social safety net access. We're relying on these leaked reports rather than someone going in front of Congress and explaining in detail what it is that these people are actually doing and why it's not a security risk. Why Musk's attempts to penetrate government IT are so concerning. Musk and his team's efforts to control IT systems across the government raise concerns about privacy and conflicts of interest. They may also give Musk, a partisan political appointee, the ability to interfere in the management of the federal budget set by Congress. Current and former government employees sued the Trump administration on Monday, claiming that it violated privacy laws and allowing their data to be disclosed to Musk and his team. Federal laws protect sensitive personal and financial information from improper disclosure and misuse, including by barring disclosure to individuals who lack a lawful and legitimate need for it. The complaint states, the scale of the intrusion into an individual's privacy is massive and, word of the day, unprecedented. These same concerns may apply to other federal agencies' IT systems that DOGE has sought to access. The SBA, for example, keeps records of business owners and the health of their businesses. Musk, as a business owner, also has the potential to privately profit from that kind of information. It is really concerning to have someone with this scope of business interests between Tesla, SpaceX, and X. All of these things would benefit from the information he's gleaning, said Lindsay Owens, executive director of Groundwork Collaborative, a progressive advocacy group focused on economic policy. Perhaps most concerning, however, Musk's access to Treasury payment systems could give him undue influence over the federal budget at a time when there is a looming debt ceiling crisis. The now departed LeBrick and his team of nonpartisan career Treasury officials typically determine when the government is at risk of default by carefully tracking the payment system. Any disruption to that system could put the country at greater risk of defaulting on our debt, which could trigger a global financial crisis. Senator Elizabeth Warren warned Tuesday in a letter to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Bessent tried to quell lawmakers' concerns in a private meeting with the GOP conference on Monday, before later assuring Congress publicly that Musk has read-only access to the payment system. But if Musk were to gain operational access, that may give him the tools to cancel payments unilaterally, essentially circumventing Congress and its power to set the federal budget, especially after courts have ruled against President Donald Trump's attempts to freeze congressionally approved federal grants. Using the Treasury payment system might be an attractive, if legally questionable, workaround to control the flow of federal funds. Trump has tried to tamp down fears about how Musk could abuse his powers at DOGE. Elon can't and won't do anything without our approval, he told reporters Monday. Elon's got something on Trump. This is fascinating. If there was something that didn't have my okay, I'd let you know about it really fast. And that's what I love about him. He speaks in words I can understand. But that offers little assurance to watchdog groups who say that Congress should ask Musk and his team to testify in an open forum about what they're doing and why Senators Warren and Ron Wyden have asked the Government Accountability Office to open an inquiry into the decision to give Musk's team access to the Treasury payment systems. You have this unelected, very powerful, very wealthy person potentially exerting great control over the government, bookbinder from the Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington said. People should know what's happening, how it's happening, why, and have real transparency. And on the flip side, this is from The Hill, which I swear is getting more centrist by the day. Like initially was, Republican, but that, now I guess compared to other things, it's damn well near centrist. So this is from The Hill. Musk shocks lawmakers, setting himself on collision course. Billionaire businessman Elon Musk is on a collision course with lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are starting to challenge his authority. Senator Republicans acknowledge they need to cut government spending, but Musk's bold decision to lock federal workers out of the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, which Musk called a ball of worms and a criminal organization, caught them by surprise. They are now questioning the basis of Musk's authority to shutter an agency Congress funds annually through the appropriations bills for the Senate Department and Foreign Operations. Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican Alaska, a member of the Senate Appropriations Committee, said she has questions about whether President Trump's authorization is enough to empower Musk to override Congress's funding directives. The president is suggesting that he has authorization. I think there is more than some questions, she said. Senate Appropriations Committee Chair Susan Collins, Republican Maine, said Musk or other senior administration officials need to notify Congress in advance before shuttering or reorganizing federal agencies. So, the Republicans are getting pissed off with him, too. Collins said whether Musk had the authority to shut down USAID is a very legitimate question. There is a requirement in the law for 15 days notice of any reorganization. We clearly did not get that. We got the letter yesterday, she said. Collins said the law also calls for a detailed explanation of any reorganizations, renaming of bureaus, shifting of centers, and again, we have not received that. She said she would talk to fellow Appropriations Committee members about our next steps. Senator Tom Tillis, Republican North Carolina, warned that simply shutting down a federal agency such as USAID would violate the Constitution in a strict sense, but he argued former President Biden also pushed boundaries with aggressive uses of executive power. He said it would be helpful for Trump or Musk to get approval from Congress before ordering drastic changes at a federal agency. At some point, it's going to require congressional action to have staying power, he said. Other Republicans warned that the sudden closure of the nation's chief foreign assistance agency would undermine U.S. diplomatic efforts in countries where China is trying to gain influence by building out local infrastructure. Senate Armed Services Committee Chair Roger Wicker, Republican Mississippi, said foreign aid is necessary to match China's efforts to expand its global influence. I have felt for a long time that U.S. aid is our way to combat the Belt and Road Initiative, which is China's effort to really gain influence around the world, including Africa, South America, and the Western Hemisphere, he told reporters in the Russell Senate office building. Wicker said, if there's massive fraud at the agency, we need to know about that. But he cautioned, we need an aid program to match the Chinese effort. Wicker said he wasn't sure what emergency powers Musk acted on, echoing the concerns of some colleagues. Senator Jerry Moran, Republican from Kansas, who represents a major farm state, voiced his alarm that hundreds of millions of dollars in American-grown food aid will spoil because of the freeze on all U.S. foreign assistance. I urge Secretary of State Marco Rubio to distribute the $340 million in American-grown food currently stalled in U.S. ports to reach those in need. Time is running out before this life-saving aid perishes, he posted on social media. Republicans have been wary of crossing Trump on any issue. Republicans have been, on any issue, including those on which Musk has taken the stage. Some have defended the president's decision to tap Musk to root out waste at federal departments and agencies. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican South Dakota, argued Musk hadn't closed U.S. aid, but instead paused its activity to review its programs. I don't think they're closing an agency, but I do think they have the right to review funding and how those decisions are made and what priorities are being funded. I think that's probably true of any administration when they come in, he said. Democrats have publicly signaled that they are growing more and more worried about Musk's influence as federal workers are offered buyouts. Officials working for Musk take over federal payment systems, and U.S. aid is dismantled. Senator Peter Welch, Democrat from Vermont, called Musk's attacks on U.S. aid despicable and pointed out that his company Starlink accepted funding from the agency to provide internet coverage for Ukraine. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Democrat in New York, said of Musk, "This dude is probably one of the most unintelligent billionaires I have ever met or seen or witnessed." Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat, Massachusetts, in a detailed letter Monday to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, asked for answers on the payment system. Musk gaining access to the Treasury Department's federal payment system, which includes the sensitive personal information of millions of Americans, has also raised questions from Republicans. We Americans have always treasured our privacy, and I'm very concerned about Mr. Musk or any of his assistants going into federal agencies and demanding personal information on employees. I'm not sure where the authority for that would come from, Collins said, especially the party that wants less government, not more. It's my understanding that some of Mr. Musk's assistants have requested access to classified information for which they are not cleared. So that's a problem as well, she added. The age of Musk's assistants has also raised eyebrows in the Senate. Some of the aides to the tech mogul who have worked to take over payment systems are reportedly as young as 19. We have this constant, criticism of age in government. And it's like, okay, well, do you want people to be older? Do you want people to be young? Like an assistant being 19, I don't think is crazy. But yes, probably having access to that level of information isn't good. But I don't think it's good that Elon Musk has it either. Democrats accused Musk of breaking the law and provoking a constitutional crisis. Elon Musk is already breaking the law right now. Law enforcement officials should be taking action. Where are they? Warren said. He seems to be running the country. He's running every dollar that moves in or out of the federal system, every Social Security check, every payment on a bridge construction project, and every dollar that goes to a military base around the world is right now evidently under Elon Musk's control, she said. This is a constitutional crisis, Warren declared. Democrats say they will challenge Musk's recent moves and authority in court. Bessent, however, has disputed this, telling Republican lawmakers that Musk does not have control over the federal payment system. He said Musk has gained read-only access to the system. The White House says Musk is now officially serving Trump as a special government employee and has a top secret security clearance. Trump on Monday said Musk won't do anything without our approval. We'll give him the approval where appropriate. We're not appropriate. We won't, he said. All right, so that's what's up. We'll keep an eye on Elon. If you have anything that you want to share with me regarding this show, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. And then for anything mayor related, I know some of you guys want to volunteer. This campaign is much larger than just me, so I can't accept volunteer requests directly on Without a Country. I have forwarded those that I have received or those I asked for previously to the announcement to my team. We have someone in charge of a field director who will be reaching out to you guys. But if you are interested in volunteering, please keep that information organized by going to CorinneFisher.com. We need your help. We want your help. I'm excited for your help. I just want to make sure that things are organized because there are so many moving parts. And as this is a grassroots campaign, we still have a relatively small team compared to the other candidates. So being more organized just helps us all be able to do more jobs because we're all working so much harder until we have more money to hire more staff. But I'm excited to see you guys on the road. And again, if you want to come to the Guys We Fucked Live historical first benefit for Corinne Fisher for mayor in New York City, you don't have to be a New York resident to come, but I do encourage New York residents to come as your ticket will go towards the threshold that we need to reach to get matching funds, which is 8 to 1. And again, I know you guys have found a way to bypass and only donate under $49, but the tickets are $49 each. Otherwise, the campaign is losing money, which is exactly the opposite of a fundraiser, some would say. So if you had paid less than that, and you want to come, you can pay the difference, and our treasurer will, help you through that. Or if that's too much for you, totally understand. And we will find a way to refund you, or you can just keep that as a contribution. Again, our treasurer will be in contact with you. We are doing everything by the books because we're not pulling a Mayor Eric Adams over here. Everything is by the books. And there's a lot of books and a lot of pages in those books. And it's extremely confusing. If you're running for office, I would say the most, not confusing, but just like the most time, the part of the campaign that will take up your most time is definitely financially related. So get yourself a good treasurer and get ready to ask people for money because you're going to have to, even if you don't like doing it. But I believe in myself and I believe in a better New York City and a better America. Okay, so we're going to do this. All right, that's our show for today. Please make sure to follow me on social media. My OG account is at Philanthropy Gal. Blue Sky is back and running. I'm at Corinne Fisher over on Blue Sky. And then, of course, make sure to follow Without a Country podcast, right? On Instagram, I ask every single week. And Corinne Fisher for Mayor on Instagram. We want to get those follows up on that. So many people have already followed, and I appreciate you guys. Again, if you want more information on my platform, you can go to CorinneFisher.com. If you want to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. And Mike is at Them Harrington on all social media. And do you have anything to promote, Michael?
If you are in New York City and want to see some of the best armored combat fighters on the planet, come on out to Ideal Glass on Friday. I'm going to be on the call-on commentary from 7 p.m. on. Going to be a lot of fun. $25 tickets for literally the best armored combatants in the world.
Now, where is this, Michael? This is in the East Village?
West Village.
West Village.
Ideal Glass Studio.
Okay, and how many people will be there?
I mean, there's, I think, 8 people in the tournament, and, I don't know, they can fit like hundreds of people at Ideal Glass Studio. So
interesting.
It's going to be
how many
rocking.
registered Democrats do you think are there? And can I get 2 minutes on the mic? This is my life now. I feel like I'm a comic starting my comic career all over again. And I'm like, can I get 2 minutes on your show? And it's basically that all over again. So I'm just reliving my life.
I love it. I don't know. Listen, I'm the lead commentator. If I say this girl is going to talk, then
woman, I'm running for office, Michael. No, I'm damn near 40.
Right. If you want to jump on the mic, it's my microphone. You can have it.
All right, thank you. Is this something that you do regularly?
Yeah. So when the guy hit me up, he's like, "Look, I need to find the Joe Rogan of armored combat." Those are his words, not mine. And yeah.
Well, then this is my first step before I go and talk about my mayoral campaign on Joe Rogan. So here we are.
It's the invite that Kamala also did not take me up on an invite to come out to armored combat. So
did you seriously request her presence?
I DM'd everybody.
You DM'd Kamala Harris about armored combat.
Yeah, I was like, "Hey, what's up, Miss Lady Harris? Come on down."
Okay, interesting. Well, maybe I'll wait till I have some palm cards to hand out, so people have some literature to enjoy, or maybe I just show up in a real skanky outfit.
I guarantee you've done Ren Fair stuff.
Hello, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
I love a pickle from a barrel.
Yo, I'll show you my outfit that I'm rocking after this. I'm going full of the times.
Oh, okay. Oh, damn. Okay. I didn't know I needed a Renaissance fair garb. I would have kept the stuff that I ordered.
You don't need it, but if you want to appeal to these people, might help.
I looked so cute at the Renaissance Fair this year. It was really one of my best. I had never dressed up before, All right. Well, we are going to sign off, and I'm going to record the Patreon news story now. But thank you so much for joining us again. Follow all the updates at Corinne Fisher for Mayor. Donate, volunteer, and buy tickets to the Guys We Fucked live Valentine's Day recording, which is a benefit for Corinne Fisher for Mayor on Valentine's Day at 6 p.m. New York Comedy Club, East Village. You can do all those things at CorinneFisher.com. And please, as a reminder, you have to be an American resident to donate to my campaign in any way. That means that even if you're out of the country and you're in town, unfortunately, no, you cannot come to the fundraiser unless your American resident friend buys the tickets for you as a gift. I mean, but please, you cannot buy tickets. We have to then refund you. And it costs the campaign more time and money. No foreign nationals can donate. American residents only. American residents or Americans living abroad are okay. Let's sign off before I get kicked out of this goddamn race. Bye. Have a good day.